Okay. So here we are, the Lost Boys, as we tell sometimes, of JKD. We've gone on from there, but this is our special Christmas present for you. 2017. We were going to sing a little song, but we were trying to break out the Band-Aid song, or there'll be snow at Christmas. I think that's Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Whatever. I'm getting confused. I know that we could do, I'm dreaming of choking your ass out for Christmas. But
Well, snowing here, man, for the first time in years. On Christmas Eve, it's snowing right now.
Yeah, is it snowing?
Yeah, pretty cool, really, for Christmas.
Well, actually, I'm kind of happy because here in the jungle, it was colder than it should be for the last couple of days because we're in the mountains. But now it's come back up. Temperature's coming back up, so it's not really, that's why I live here. I have spent a lot of time in almost the Arctic Circle. I've been in northern Canada quite a bit, and then the northern United States, which is not the Arctic Circle, but it's miserable. I've been in miserable places when it's cold, and I don't like it. And St. Louis is not that bad in the winter. I mean, comparative to places I've been, but still, I don't need it. Unless I'm shooting a movie or something, then I'll go. But we're going to tackle the biggest requested topic of all time. This is the one that people have asked me about since Ken and I started talking to each other. Like, when are you going to cover this? Like, look, okay, if you want to slip us a $20 or maybe $100 bill, we could get it. We could shove it up the line, we take requests. But this is the Bruce Lee. Absorb what is useful. Absorb what is useful. And this is a huge topic, and everybody loves that line because they can just throw it out there, and then they think, wow, I'm like Bruce Lee because I'm saying absorb what's useful, throw away what is not. And basically, I think Ken, take it. I mean, take it from here. You got a lot to say on this, so let's just start in, and we'll do our normal go down the river with it. Okay.
Yeah, this kind of hits home right now because for the last few months, we didn't talk about this last time. I was already involved in this, but gosh, my martial resume is ridiculous because I've spent a lot of time with a lot of people like you have, and I'll use Aikido for a second just because it's a case in point. While I was still training with Mike a little bit still in the 80s, which later on a comeback because Dan and I got him to come to the St. Louis University campus and start doing some classes. But even while I was still doing all the JKD training, even before we started, this would have even started before I even started doing any Filipino stuff. I started cross-training in Aikido because I saw some value. Because at the time, we weren't doing any kind of grapple stuff. We weren't doing anything with locks, anything with chokes. No, some takedowns, but none of the big, kind of stuff you'd see from kind of, judo type stuff or anything. So I started cross-training in Aikido. So, and I've done that with jiu-jitsu and got all kinds of stuff. But the idea for me was I felt like I was applying, Bruce's philosophy, the absorb what is useful, and applying that analytical process to figuring out, trying to fill in gaps in my own training, things that we didn't do. We did nothing with weapons, and trying to pull stuff in. However, using a process of learning the rules from some of these other arts, right? You have to kind of immerse yourself. And then you start applying the analytical process to figure out, well, what's useless? What can't I pull off? What fails when I try to test this in a realistic type of an attack situation? And I've never given up that philosophy, so much so that, guys want to attach to even the name of what you call what you do. So over the years, about every 8 years or so, I would even change the name of what I do, which I've, as you know, done in the last year again. Because I say, don't get attached. Bruce used to talk about this, right? Don't get attached to the label, because the label's just kind of the finger pointing the moon. It's giving a hint at where you're going and what you're doing. And then there's a time where in your evolution where, as a symbol of that, the name needs to change too, right in line with changing what you're doing because you found better ways. You're finding a higher technology, or just a better, more efficient way to get there. So I've been doing that with Systema. I've been in that now. I've immersed in that for over 5 years, about 5.5 years. Now I'm starting to see, because now I'm putting it more to the test what I don't feel is so good necessarily, you know. And you know, you always have to frame this with who are you training? Who are the guys you're working with? You know, I'm not working with guys that are full-time practitioners and full-time trainers. You know, I'm working with a bunch of part-time guys now. So I see now where the failure is in some of the stuff that I've pulled from this Russian martial art. Now, I shouldn't say it's not the art failing. It's, I find that there's things in it that are pretty tough for guys to make work if they're not full-time practitioners, you know. Some of it's too elaborate. Some of it's, they don't have those kind of body mechanics because they're not training, you know, 35, 40 hours a week. So I have to go back to certain things that are more basic that I find have a lower failure rate when they're not trained as often, because they're more simple, direct approach, you know, like a basic palm stop to a big wide hook, right? But with a fast palm heel to the nose, versus a more elaborate flowing kind of an interception of the attack, and it flows into a takedown. That stuff's great, but I find that it's hard to embed that into a guy's body mechanics if he's not putting in tons of time. You know, you have to strip some of this stuff down. I do find extreme value in the breath work. I find extreme value in freeing up joints so that a guy can move better in strange physical postures and positions that you end up in. I find a lot of stuff in the multiple attacker work that's useful, but here again, I'm back to having to kind of take out stuff that's a little too much. It's too elaborate, and simplify it and bring it back down to core basic work. So to me, that whole philosophy, absorbing what's useful, getting rid of the extraneous stuff, you know, like I've got one student who's really into forms, and because he's a Tai Chi guy, and I said that's fine, but you can't do anything with that combatively, you know, and so my head's still in that place, and it's never gone away. You know, I told a lot of the guys that I used to train with, and that Stan and I used to train with, it's like I felt like Stan got on the Dan bandwagon too much with memorizing all these elaborate
patterns,
and yeah, you know, and I mean, you know, I kept trying to use that Hubud for years as a generator base, and then use that as just a way to pull guys away from it. Finally said, no, even that basic pattern's a pattern. It's got to go. Threw that out the window, you know. So there's kind of my core attitude and philosophy about using, you know, absorbing what you can use. You've got to have a process for that. You have to analyze, and you have to test it over and over, you know.
Yeah, well, absolutely. You covered a lot there, and I just want to draw people's attention to that. They can go back to this when it's on YouTube and play it back when it's up after we finish. But he gave out the answer to it's like a finger pointing at the moon. A lot of people parrot that line. They don't understand it, but you completely explain what that actually means. So people go back and listen to that aspect. You also covered a whole lot of other things. And there's a lot of ways for me to approach what you said. I would say the main thing, and then I'll get into some smaller categories, was that you're defining all of these arts to fit you. The same thing that Bruce was doing. Bruce was taking stuff because you said you said at one point, you get to think about who you're training. But before that, you have to have it fit for you, for yourself. And yeah. Bruce fought the way Bruce was going to fight, and all these guys trying to emulate him and try to be him are making a big mistake because they're not Bruce. And so the way Bruce was fighting, because he was light and small and fast, is not going to work for a guy that's a power lifter. That doesn't mean a power lifter type of guy can't be successful, but it means he can't fight like Bruce did, because Bruce couldn't fight like a power lifter. You know, he can't be picking people up and slamming them and pushing and throw them into the walls and stuff, which is really effective. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the Viking approach, and I love it. But the second part that you said, the part that you did say, was like, you got to know who you're training. Yes, I agree with that. And I train people, as I've said many times, as a military trainer, because that's what I like to do the most. I train other people besides military guys or private contractors. And the thing is, I'm doing exactly what you said, because especially with John Saylor and I now working together, and I started training normal people, non-military, non-private contractors in the ways that I trained the private contractors in the military, and it's working very well. But the thing is, we're using a very it's the method how we teach, number one, which I won't talk about. You'll have to come to a camp to find that out. But as far as the things that we do, it's uncomplicated, simple, direct, and powerful. Like you were talking about the blocking or the stopping. Why would you use something that's fraught to fail? Because I'm telling you, in extreme violence, as you know, in extreme violence, you shut off the higher processing centers. It's not like, look, if you're training in a t-shirt in a gym with shorts on, you're not ready to be fighting in the snow when you got two guys on you, and all you can, your reticular activating system is firing off, and you can't do math problems. Because that's what happens. You shut down and you start going, it's like we like to say, to the reptilian center, and everything's got to be hardwired, which means you've had to train it. And you can't be training a million different things and expect something to come out under that pressure. You have to be trained in one or two things that are very effective, that work, and you have to do it under stress, just like NASA does this training, the military does this training. And why? Because it works. And that's like what you're talking about, hubbub, or you know, I hate that thing. It's still patterns. And the big difference in JKD between how people were trained with Dan and then how I was trained with Mike, we never did patterns. Ours was all reactive. And it's harder. You have to be better. You can't do it in a group setting at all. It's one-on-one. But we don't have flaws like those guys who are pattern trained. Well, you'll take the pattern and adapt it. You can't. It won't work because you're still trained your motor set in a pattern that you've learned a pattern, and you're not going to be able to change that. This is the same reason why people who were training gun disarms and stuff, and they would hand the gun back. You know, you probably know about this. You know, cops were training this, and they would do it, and they would trade off. You know, hand the gun.
Yeah.
And,
same
and
thing. Hand it right back to the guy because they've been training that, and then they gave the guy back.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so that's why now they started dropping the gun on the ground. You know, they don't get handed to each other. They drop it on the ground, and the guy picks it up. So, I mean, that's one thing. It's a conditioned response. You're making conditioned reflexes, and that's what's happening when you do patterns. And I know we attack the Filipino martial arts quite a bit for patterns, but the Silat guys are even worse. I mean, and they want to have 4 billion different things. We're deadly. We have this. Why in the hell? Look, what we train people, especially in combat judo, and that's why it's catching on, and we're investing a lot in it, and we're just going to explode, is that we're not technique. We don't collect techniques. It's all these guys who never fight, who never do anything, go to seminars and clinics and workshops, whatever you want to call them now. They want to collect techniques. Survival in extreme violence is not proportional to the number of techniques you know. It's proportional to what you can effectively use. And that's what you were talking about, that you're trying to get out what is effective. You're trying to make, because we both care about producing results. We were talking before about how kids' martial arts don't even cover this because they're not martial arts. They're entertainment centers. They are McDojos, as people want to call them. They're daycare centers, and they have fun, you know, but they're not producing results. They're not there. The kids empirically cannot prove that they beat up people, save someone's life. That doesn't happen. That's not what they're doing. But that's what we're doing because we're both concerned with that. That's where we are. That's our niche. That's our market. That's our discipline. That's what we went into this for, about safety. You know, we're trying to make people safe and in the worst conditions. And so to absorb what is useful is to understand the bottom line. To me, the bottom line, what is useful is to understand that combat is martial arts. You know, it's not about your chakra centers. It's not about your flexibility. It's about, can you survive? Do you know what's effective? And why would you be doing anything else? Because I tell you, if you have to fight all day long, you're going to start gravitating towards what's simple, direct, effective, and powerful. And I think, I mean, even you were there actually when Thai boxing, Muay Thai became mainstream in the United States through Dan because of, you know, having Chai, whatever that's worth. But they did popularize it. Dan has been responsible for popularizing a lot of things. They popularized Muay Thai, and why was it? What was the big thing between Muay Thai and karate and Shotokan and Taekwondo and everything in Okinawan, you know, whatever? Why was it so different? Because it was using simple, direct technique. Remember that? I mean, you were there. I mean, give us a story. Give us a story about that.
Green in our school, you know, because we had so many instructors in here. And here we had Ron Smith. I've talked about Ron before. Man, Ron's a solid fighter. I watched him beat the shit. Remember Howard Jackson, the big kickboxing guy?
Yeah.
I watched Ron on a televised fight. He controlled the crap out of that guy. And Ron still lost because here's Ron. Who's this guy? And it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But the point being, Ron's a solid guy. He started boxing when he was 6 years old in the boxing gyms over here. And he had a Thai trainer, a guy that owned restaurants here, and then he took Ron to the Thailand in the 70s. How many guys from the U.S. trained in Muay Thai here and then went and fought in Thailand in the 70s? As far as I know, there were only 2, and Ron was one of them, you know. And so Ron's stuff was solid. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Ron's stuff, and I'm looking at what we're doing with Dan, and it's getting more and more crazy, more and more variations, more and more elaborate patterns and stuff, and I'm like, God, this stuff's going to get some people killed. They can't remember enough of what they just did Monday versus what they just did Tuesday. And I was the first one that I pissed off a lot of people, and Stan included at the time, because I said, I'm focusing on training with Ron, and I'm keeping a bunch of my Pakiti that I got, and that's all I'm doing. And I went in a whole different direction while I was still in that school teaching full time. And I said, you know what? The way the Muay Thai's trained, and just the fitness work alone, just the way it's drilled alone is worth a lot. One thing I've always adamantly agreed with Dan about, and this relates, is a lot of times outcome of these fights has to do with your ability to persevere and being in better shape than the other guy and just having better endurance and strength. So, you know, I pushed that, the fitness aspect of it, the conditioning, you know. But, you know, and nobody else was training hitting like we were hitting with, you know, to me, the knees and elbows in Muay Thai alone are super valuable. That, you know, that eliminated that whole thing of trapping. Because I did with some other guys that could do their trapping, and you just blast right through it with the elbows and, you know, passing, going right to the clinch, throwing the guy around and just laying into him with knees and elbows. And that pretty much eliminated that whole thing, you know. So, yeah, it's back to, you know, solid, basic stuff. You know, you do millions of repetitions, and you just learn how to adapt to what's coming. You know, be able to get in there and really hit hard. And so I got off that train back in the '80s. I moved away from all those hardcore patterns. You know.
Yeah. Well, that, you know. Okay. Well, here just the
word's effective. That stuff was effective because you train to hit hard and repetitiously and could keep banging, you know.
Well, I'll add to that a little bit, because I am in Thailand right now. I've been in Thailand a long time. I fought 20 times. I fought 20 times in Thailand. I fought 75 times around the world, but I fought 20 times in Thailand, and I was on TV twice, I think. And the thing is, it's all about simple, direct, effective, and powerful. That's what it is, and that's what wins. I think you remember back in the '70s, they had in Hong Kong fights where the kung fu guys challenged like the second tier of Muay Thai guys. I mean, these weren't the top Muay Thai guys, second tier probably, but the Muay Thai guys got them all. You know, and the thing was, before the fight started, the kung fu guys were like, they just have simple techniques. Well, that would be a clue. You know what I mean? You know, and here's what we say in combat judo. What we do is, like I said, we don't collect techniques. It's just like shooting, handgun, tactical handgun, combat carbine. You know, pulling the trigger remains the same. It's just the environment you do it in, you have to change it a little bit. Like if you're in snow, you have to change things. If you're in mud, you have to change things. If you're in urban, you change how you shoot, you know. But the overall thing that you're doing, pulling the trigger never changes. But this is something that these other guys are not getting, because they're taking in Actually, you know what they're doing, Ken? They're doing the opposite of what we're talking about. They're absorbing all these things that are not useful. And I think that's like what you're talking about with Dan. He was doing that because he had to have something to sell. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, what isn't that exactly what all these guys were doing? They were taking in everything that wasn't useful, and they're putting it out there. And people, and I see this with knife stuff. Oh my God, knife stuff is just, it's out of control, because
Yeah.
very few people have ever had knife fights. I've had two, and I'm not looking for more. I mean, if it was $1,000,000, okay, but I'm not looking for more. But the thing is, two is way astronomically more than these guys who say that they're experts. I mean, I know people who've had a couple, like 10 or 20 actual ones, but the thing is, there are all these people doing all these things, and people think, oh, he's doing this stuff, and it's knife attacking. It's like you're attacking somebody that without a knife. That's not impressive to me. If you want to be impressive, if you're saying, the rare instance that you're knife against knife, which is very rare, and people are pulling out little blades, 4-inch blades, that stuff is not going to work against. I mean, the Bowie method, I don't want to get into knife fighting too much. I just want to use it as an example. But there are people who know what they're doing, very few. But most of these people out there, people are like, man, it's so cool. It's such a great thing. Like, you're using knives with no guards, number one. That is not what a knife fighter will ever do. And you're attacking. Big deal. You're not going to, in the way they attack, there's so many flaws in it. They don't think there is. They can show up, and we can do a thing with the dummy blades, but you're going to pay me when I show you your errors. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to hand out free technology because I know your holes, what you're doing, and I could name the systems, but or they think that it's going to be like the Filipinos, which there's mainly the Filipinos. Some other people have tried to borrow it, but they're standing this close to each other. You think you're going to stand there squared up on each other? You're both going to slice. You're going to slice the shit out of each other. That's mutual death. Mutual death. I'll give people a free lesson right here. Knife fighting at this distance is stupid. This is how to die. Both of you, how to die. And it's like, no, I got patterns. I practice. No, you haven't. Jack shit. You practice patterns. You're not ready for somebody just going wild. It's just stupidity. You can't keep up with the blade at this close. You can't. I don't care. Oh, you may not. No, I can. I'll beat your ass, but I'm going to do it from out here, because here's where the knife fight is really at. And that's all I'm going to say. It's really here. It's not here where all the Filipino, the movies, and these guys want to act like, oh, it's all right here. No, it's not. It's not right here. And for you to come here, I will have cut your damn arm off, or you're going to be bleeding. You're going to be bleeding profusely, because I'm not letting you get this close to me. And that's all I'm going to say about knife fighting. But I'm using it as an example of how people are not doing what we're saying. They're doing the opposite. And that's what I see out. That's what I see out there. They're not absorbing what is useful. Do you think this is because they're scared of reality, that they haven't pressure tested the stuff? They haven't stress tested
they don't have the process. And I like what you just said, because this is comical. I was brought in to do this edge weapon awareness seminar for the police academy back in the 80s. Advanced patrol seminar for guys who've been out on the street for some time. And it was kind of cool, because the guy running it, one of the first things he did is he brought up this old movie. It's David Carradine is a cowboy, and he's having a knife fight with this other guy. And
I've seen it. I've seen that.
The around there, real close in there, and it's like, it was the dumbest thing. Here's an example of all the bullshit that you see in the movies. This is how the guy kicked off the seminar, which was pretty cool. And then we did one really simple thing to stress part of what you're saying is, we're talking about, you can't let this guy get up close, because there's a time and distance issue here. So what we did is, Mike had one of their training pistols made out of molded aluminum in his holster. So, and I had 3 knives on me. All right. So one of them was a practice knife. So my job was just from 6 feet, just 6 feet out, to draw and come in as fast as I could. And his job was to try to get the gun out of the holster and be able to do something. Now, this is at a range of 6 feet. Impossible. It was so easy to just come straight up the middle, bury that knife, and then carve the guy to smithereens before the gun could get out of the holster.
And he knew you were coming. And he knew
I was coming, right? And just the eyes opening up, like, okay, that was good reality. These guys needed to see this, you know. You can't let the guy get that close because here's what's going to happen, you know. And I did nothing fancy other than the fact that I drew and I just came straight up the middle as fast as I could, boom, right in the breadbasket, and then from there grabbing his head, slicing the throat, you know, going nuts from there, carving him up like a Christmas turkey, you know. And just they wanted to use that video to be able to show judges locally, because cops, if they manage to get their gun out in confronting a knife situation, some of these guys were getting suspended for pulling their gun on a guy with a knife. I'm like, you better pull your fucking gun on a knife, but you better start a lot sooner than waiting till the guy's that, you know. And we wanted that to show that no, it's totally justified. In fact, they should have the gun out immediately. You know, that's what we wanted to show. So that part's good. Plus, what you said, pressure testing. I just did this again not too long ago, a few months back. You know, we got a little circle that's taped off down in my little studio, right? And you're in that square. And I tell the guy attack, and I said, just go in as hard and fast, thrusting and slashing. And I tell the other guy, you try and see what happens if all you do is back. You know, you're just do your natural reaction. And what do most people do? They just start backing up. They're overwhelmed, and the guy's in on them, and he's just stabbing them half to death. You know, or they're trying to do an interception into some fancy. It's over with, man. You're dead already.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, man, here we are talking about knife stuff, but let's go ahead and nail the coffin lid shut on parts of this, because whenever I see anybody trying to teach somebody a lock, a manipulation of the wrist, you know, against a knife. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It'll never happen. You'll be dead. You'll be dead. You will be dead. And another thing, okay, here, like I said, we're gonna nail the coffin lid shut. These guys who are doing demos on stuff, and even, you know, most of it's like, you know, they attack and the guy, of course, is frozen and does that.
Yeah.
But the other ones where the guy comes even faster, what you don't see is the retraction. And that's what's going to happen when somebody tries to touch you. You're not going to let your arm get grabbed. You're going to retract, and the problem is that's where you get stabbed. They retract and they come back, and that's what you're not seeing these guys, because they can't handle it. They don't have an answer for that. They don't have an answer. You know, they're like, well, no, you're not going to get the arm. Chances are you're not going to get it. You know, and the thing is, people are coming in. They come in. I mean, this one knife fight, I didn't know the guy had a knife initially, you know, because luckily it wasn't one. That's another thing. I haven't been in a knife fight with guys with Bowie-sized knives. I've been, you know, blades that were that long, which makes life easier, you know. And initially, I didn't know the guy had a blade. He was doing all sorts of weird, you know. He was all over the place, weird shit, you know. I'm like, what the hell? And I mean, there's certain things to watch that give away that a guy does have a blade, but this guy was just psychotic. And so I was like, well, you know, what the hell? Boom, you know what I mean? But then people were like, he's got a blade, and I was like, whoa, you know what I mean? Because I had to be more precise. I couldn't be lackluster. You know what I'm talking about. And there's a lot to be said. I mean, but that goes into, you know, I don't want to, we're giving out lots of free training, and they're like, what do you mean free training? Well, we're telling you the mindset, number one, which is gigantic. We're also telling you what the flaws are, and that's one of the ways that you get better. You look at what the other people are doing wrong and why it doesn't work. That's the way technology improves. That's how medicine improves. That's how I do everything. That's how I have innovated stuff. I looked at other people, what their ideas of an answer was, and I saw, no, that doesn't work. You know, it's not going to really work. They're holding things back. They're not moving. That's the other thing. You don't see, the main thing you don't see people do, as we're talking about stress, is they're not ever doing things that combat speed, are they? Ken?
Yeah, a lot of times, you know. I mean, I believe in doing slow training so that you can see stuff and feel what's happening. But then, you hit the nail on the head. As soon as you go fast, it's all different now. It's a whole different now. Yeah.
And that, if you want to absorb something that's useful from our talk, that's it. Go do it. I mean, I understand, you know, I'm not negating what you said, because you do have to train it. You know, you have to learn it, but then you have to take it. You can't do it at 1/3 speed forever and think that you're suddenly going to, you know, you've been landing a plane in a big giant field, and now you think you can take off from an aircraft carrier. You can't do it. You know, you can't do it. And I got a weirdness going on there. You can't do it. So you have got to be pressure tested at some point, and that means combat speed with partners who are not letting you win, which is, you know, which generally means you got to have body armor, or you got to be, they got to be padded, some, you know, so you can do certain stuff to them. Because simulated striking doesn't mean anything.
No, you know, the other night we were in class, just to always remind them. I'm like, you know, we put the ringside makes a really good chest protector for
yeah,
coaching.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And I said, you know, just every once in a while, you got to remember, hit the guy now. Now you can hit the guy as hard as you want. There's no psychological barrier because he's wearing that pad. And, you know, it's like, oh, you know, I see the problem with the punch sometimes, because how does your wrist feel now? You know, because then you got some resistance that you meet before you go through. And, you know, just trying to keep it real. My biggest problem with all this stuff really is in the realm of protective equipment, because if you go too far, the guy doesn't react realistically because he's not, at least you can hit as hard as you want, but the guy receiving doesn't get a realistic, you know, it's always back to you pretty much just at some point you have to have minimal protective equipment on, and because you got to feel it on both ends. You know, I know you agree with that. The guy being hit's got to feel it too, but not be damaged. That's always been a problem, you know, having the right equipment for that, as
well,
you know.
You can do it. You can do it the Spetsnaz way when they trained in the gulags. You know what I mean? They used to just
the guy in prison to practice there for real. Yeah.
Yeah, they used to kill prisoners. Actually, you know. I mean, God. And I said to people, I was in the army at that time, and I knew this, and I was like saying, do you think we have a chance against guys who have that experience already? And you're going out theoretical. You know what I mean? We're going out theoretical. These guys are not theoretical. You know, I said it's a huge. I wasn't advocating to do it, but I'm just saying those guys are so far ahead of us because they've done it. You know what I mean? You've spent a couple weeks killing people in the gulag. How far up does that put you in hand-to-hand reality? You know, pretty high in my book. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's as real as it gets. But yeah,
I think Vlad. You can talk to Vlad about that if you want. I think you know.
Yeah, he has talked about it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's.
He may not want to. He may not want to talk about it, but you know, I mean.
You know, back to the whole absorb thing. You know, this is often the problems with some of the systems that are more elaborate. Like Sistema has tons of stuff in it. And Vladimir's for real. I mean, that guy can pull off stuff that. But here we're back to. This is the problem for us, right? Here's a guy who's immersed in this. This is his life. This is what he does all day, every day. His skill levels and where he's coming from with training and how he trains stuff is, I think it's realistic and appropriate for guys at that level who that's all they do. But then you're left back here with the kind of guys that
it's not reproducible. It's not reproducible.
Right. They don't have those attributes because they don't train full time. They're not,
Yeah, and that's, you know, a lot of people say, oh, the Sistema is what they do. No, Sistema is not what they do in the Russian military. It's military.
No, that was like the group that Vlad was in with Mikhail. It was just their tiny little group that did it.
Yeah. It's because it's military sambo, and it's because you've got to have a uniform thing that works for the most people, and you got to train the way that. And I mean, I know this is what I do, and this combat judo is like this. In fact, I mean, we can get just a little bit of history. What Sambo is really combat judo. The two guys that were instrumental in creating Sambo for the Soviet Union, one was a high-ranking judo guy who had grown up in Japan, and then later he was killed. I mean, he was killed because they thought he was a spy. He wasn't a spy, but that was just, you know, all the Stalin stuff going on. But it's basically judo, but they didn't want to say it's judo. You know, so they came up with the acronym Sambo. In fact, in every military system in the world that I'm aware of, and I'm aware of like 30 or 40, they all have components of judo. And I'm not talking the sports stuff. I'm talking about the stuff way back when Kano was starting it, because Kano was influential in a lot of, because he was doing what we were doing, talking about, he was absorbing what's useful, but he was also trying to absorb what could be practiced without, like you said, that wouldn't kill the other. You could at least practice it without. I mean, you can do, the arm throw, which is it's not a combat throw, but, Ippon Seinagi, but you did it against the joint, that was the real way to throw it. I mean, the way people throw in sports stuff with the arm like this is not how it was meant to throw. It was meant to be, it was originally thrown like this, which gives you no partner, because you're breaking their arm. You're dislocating the arm at the least when you throw them. So he changed it and said, I like it, but let's change it. And then he actually, he put the fireman's, he took the fireman's carry from wrestling and put it into judo. I don't know if you know that or not, but
that's funny though, because that was always my favorite. I got it from wrestling, and I used to use it on Brazilian guys when I was learning that.
Yeah, but he did it in because he went around to a lot of different jiu-jitsu schools, and he was learning from different jiu-jitsu guys, and one of them he couldn't beat, and then he got a book, a wrestling book, and saw the fireman's carry, and then he used it and beat this guy. He threw him, and because the guy's like, you can't throw me, and then he did it because number one, it's a surprise move, and that's another thing. There's a big point, because people don't realize this. In war, you don't recover from surprise moves. You're dead. You don't get to go home and practice it, and then I've seen the moves, because all these people are like, oh, I've seen his moves. In reality, you don't get to see that. You know what I mean? That's why these guys, when you hear like this reverence, and we're talking a couple centuries ago, for guys who had these techniques that people didn't know about, is because they were killing people with them. Nobody was getting to learn it. They were dying from it, or they were a chosen student. So that was where that being guarded about your technology came from.
Sure.
And it's like, if you're sword fighting, I'm just making this up, and you had this forward somersault and then stabbed the guy because the guy was busy looking at your somersault, and it worked. Nobody knew about it, unless you were getting stabbed. You know what I mean? And so anything that worked like that, this sport mentality is corrupted what people think fighting is. Because in war fighting, you don't get to go home, play tape, and learn from it. Well, I grow from you die. There isn't a second place in war fighting. There isn't. And this makes it very powerful to really absorb what's useful here, and that is to absorb the reality. I think that's what's lacking in everything we're talking about with these other guys doing all these techniques and trying to. They want to look a certain way. Mike used to talk about that. They want to fight. They want to look like a Wing Chun guy. They want to fight. They want to look like a Taekwondo guy, or they want to fight and look like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, or whatever. They're not taking the reality of it. Doesn't matter what you look like when you fight. It doesn't matter. It's, are you successful? And I don't think that comes through. Have you found that? I mean, you were doing it long before I was. I mean, commercially, you were in the school with Jay. I mean, did you find that was that hard for you to get people off of that?
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, I use the word ritualized. Everything's been ritualized. Yeah, it was hard. I mean, we were the oddballs on the block in the first place, for what we were doing. And I like how things were better initially there, because it was more freedom and flexibility. And it was really more leaning toward somewhat to the JKD side of things. And then the more we started bringing Dan in and doing stuff with him, and it started going into all that, and then it started going into, okay, now we have to have uniforms, and now we have to have carrots to dangle with all these certificates and belts and all that. And that's when it went. And right in there, I was the first one, and still within the school, to break away from that and go more back to the way it was before, except with the addition of, there was some really good, solid, basic stuff from Pikiti with a knife and more like a club type of a stick that I liked, that I kept, and I was really just redefining everything and adding that to a lot of the older way I trained in JKD and taken a lot of elbow and knee work in particular from Muay Thai, from that I was training with Ron, and starting to create a whole new different, my own little hybrid thing, you know, that was more stripped down, more solid, basic stuff, you know. Yeah, because things were, and we went through that progression. We started realizing what happens when you're in a commercial situation like that and you're too far out in left field, because all these other people are coming in and they've had this karate or that karate, or they've been in the you know, sport judo clubs, and they've been in the taekwondo, especially that, and we're so far out in left field, it started becoming the thing of economic survival. So, you know, then it started going more into this, we had to create a belt system and uniforms, and it's like, that's when I started backing off myself pretty quick.
Well, you know, they probably, I mean, you've encountered this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm telling it to the people watching us, and
Yeah.
that's these people had egos. They were clinging to what they'd done. They didn't want to give it up. You know, they put whatever.
Like losing something, yeah.
You know, they're 7 years in Taekwondo or whatever. They didn't want to. They couldn't just admit that it doesn't work. I mean, it's not the best answer. You could use something from it, but you couldn't use the whole thing. You couldn't use that filter over the entire. That wasn't the fight. The fight was so much more than what they were trying to cover. And when people try to hang on to that, I had people that I was training in Canada, some of them, and they were, I think it's Wado Ryu. I think that's the name of it. It's a karate system. And they would try to define everything I was doing in some Wado Ryu way, you know? They were trying to look like, well, that's really kind of close to this thing that they do at this higher level. And I'm like, who cares? And it's not, you know, because I didn't get it from you, you know, I got it from reality, you know. And they were constantly trying to understand what I was doing and having them do through their past, and it didn't help. You know what? They were slower at learning than other people. The ones who tried to hang on to their past in martial arts were always less successful than the ones who just let go. And I think that, I mean,
there you go. That's it right there. That's it right there. Not many people are willing to do that. They keep thinking they're losing something. And see, that's the process I have to first go through with. I got a guy that's been with me now for 5 years. A couple of decades in Hapkido and Taekwondo, right? And that guy, it's taken him a while. You know, he kept seeing like, oh, you know, the whole idea of you can't serve two masters, you know, that's a favorite line of Norm's. You know, Norm always said you can't serve two masters. And because how do you practice something that's overly patterned, and you know, that's one master, and then serve the master of breaking away from that? You can't do the two. So I always have to watch guys go through that process and realize, then there's an initial thing of like, God, did I waste all my time? It's like, well, one way of looking at it, you could say you wasted a lot of time. The other way of looking at it is like, well, okay, still, did you learn something about how to take a blow? Yeah. Did you learn basically at least how to use your legs and kick somebody? Yeah. You know, did you learn how to use your arms to some degree? I said, so you haven't really totally lost everything. I mean, you built some attributes with all that, you know. It wasn't the most effective way to fight, but don't tell yourself that you got nothing from it. Just move beyond it now and give it up, because you're seeing that it's not working for you for combative application. That's how I frame it for guys, so they don't feel like, you know, because I truthfully believe that. It's like, yeah, I learned something about hitting. Okay, maybe it wasn't the most efficient, most effective, but at least you were hitting. At least you were getting hit. At least you were, you know, developing some attributes. So now take those attributes, but let's expand on it and go out from there and make it more realistic. That's how I try to frame it. Even right now, it's like, you know, some of my guys will be surprised when they listen to this, because they're going to go, they realize we're doing some things that aren't quite systema, but they don't understand what I almost hate to give it away too much. I like them to discover on their own.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, well, I'm not Vladimir. I'm not Marty Wheeler. I'm not Kevin Secor. I can't pull that off. It's like, right, you're not in here doing this 5 and 6 days a week like those guys. Those guys are phenomenal and they can do their stuff, but you can't because you're not them, you know. So
Yeah.
we have to modify.
But don't try to be. But don't try to be. You know, that's like
it's not your profession. It's not what you do full time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, how far are you going to get being an Elvis impersonator? I mean,
Really? Oh my
you,
God. Yeah. Oh,
you, you,
yeah.
you rise to the height of being an Elvis impersonator. I mean, you're never going to rise to being the Beatles by being a Elvis impersonator. That's just one
Yeah.
analogy. Okay. I want to say a couple things before I forget them. It's like, yeah, we got to get Norm back, and I got to kick him in the crotch for the new year. And Jay probably could add a lot to this conversation, actually, about because I'd like to hear his mental workings on this. What we're talking about, the absorb, like seeing it happen in his school, what
Yeah.
his thoughts were during this whole thing, because he was being really progressive way back and bringing it in, but then there became a new kind of a tyrant master, really, right? Like you're calling it ritualized. It became a ritualized master, didn't it? A tyrant master with what Dan was doing. Because I see it like in stuff like, Ron. Do Ron Balicki, right? The
I've heard that name. I don't know.
Okay, maybe Jay's probably met him actually, but he's married to Dan's daughter.
Oh,
And
that's
yeah,
right.
and he's a big, he's of course he does in Asando stuff, but I mean he does exactly what Dan, you know what I'm saying? And he's going to teach you the 4,000 different variations of this. You know what I mean? He's doing exactly like that. Now that's is all what he does, but it's like it's wasted. What we're talking about, the thing that I don't like, and I think I talk for you when I say this, is we don't like to waste our time. Well, why are we going to learn something that we can't use? And that initially, that's what happened with me with trapping. Trapping took. I've said this before. Trapping took me a long time in comparison. Didn't take me long really at all, real time, but compared to how fast I was advancing with Mike and other aspects, it took me a long time. And then Mike said, well, you're not going to use it after I finally could do it. And I'm talking about combat do it. I'm not talking about doing it and cheese salad, that's another useless pattern. Cheese salad, that's another useless, stupid thing, Oh, man, this is great. No, it's not, because I will take your ass down. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to, anyway. The thing is, I threw it out, though. I mean, I let it go. But I had like a half a day where I was like, man, I finally got it. I don't want to let it go, but I did. And I just don't feel like we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Why we don't want to waste time? Like, why would you guys just didn't do enough of it? Why? When we can spend 1/3 the time and learn Greco-Roman or freestyle takedowns, and they're more effective. Why? When we could spend 1/3 the time doing that, why would we try to these guys are not getting the point of absorbing what's useful, because they're trying to make it work. And their answer always is, it's your fault. You didn't train enough. You didn't spend enough time at it. You're not doing it the right way, instead of it's the wrong thing to do. And that's where I made a giant breakthrough, was like, no, this is the wrong thing to do. And these Silat entries where you pass it, you do this. Why would you pass it? Why would you pass it over to the other arm and then turn in, which you're not going to be able to do when you're moving fast and that guy's moving fast? Why would you do that? Why would you just not whack the guy? You know what I'm saying? I mean, these things, salute, and you're going to, it's like, what in the hell are you doing? You're taking 4 moves to do something I can do in 1. Or I can do it at the same time you're doing your move, because I'm just not going to contend with it. Just because you throw that arm doesn't mean I have to deal with it, which is a giant secret. But the thing is, they're not getting this. They're not getting the point of absorb what's useful. But I kind of want to switch gears a little bit here. It's the same thing, but we're talking about the actual fighting part of it. But bring in now, because you and I both have done this, bring in what else you brought in, like you're absorbing what was useful from other disciplines, psychology, from whatever, reflexology or whatever, that helped. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a giant plus right there.
Well, the other part of all this too is back to the whole ritualized. A lot of guys are treat this like, okay, it's Monday night and I play volleyball. It's Tuesday night and I play poker. It's Wednesday night and I play karate or whatever. You know, it's just a thing. It's not there. They don't care. It's just it's a recreational, and that's what all those big schools are playing off of, is those guys that want to be able to say they do a martial art, and they're most of the time. I love these so-called boxing gyms that have sprung up around here, and all these freaking guys do. They don't even punch a focus pad or do any timing stuff. They just sit there and blast the air. I went into one. It's right here in the middle of Clayton, which is, you know, the big government center in St. Louis. There's a lot of money floating around there, and these guys have a very successful boxing gym. And they do have a certain group of guys that train off in another part of the building that has a regulation size ring, and then some of these guys do get pro fights. But that's a tiny percent. Most of these people are in there and they just have somebody sitting there go jab, 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 straight right, you know, and calling out shit, like almost like a Taibo thing, and they're throwing shit in the air. And I said, you know what? I could make these people get more turned on to these classes if you would at least make it interactive, where they come in and a partner learns how to do some good solid feeds with a focus mitt at least. At least they're working some timing and something's coming back in them. They're developing some body mechanics, and it's more interesting and it's more aerobic. Let's at least make it more fun and a little more real. And it's like, oh no, because then I got to have you in here teaching guys how to feed the mitts, and then they're always that. And I'm like, well, whatever, okay, you know. They don't care. They just, you know, or they got those really cheap Century, the super cheap Century things on the pedestal that you can knock over every time you hit it. And they got people like basically, you know, like a little doggy paddling at it. They have no idea that kind of shit. You know, it's like, oh God. But that's, you know, unfortunately, this is what most people want. You know this. They just want to say they do it. They don't care about what. So
they don't care until the violence hits them, and then they realize. Then they find out that what they were doing was a sport, and it has no bearing on dealing with violence. Or someone pulls out a weapon, and they never, because how many people are in a place where they're training and suddenly they turn out the lights? We've talked a little bit about this before.
Yeah.
They turn out the lights. Two guys attack you. Somebody throws a stick or a knife, and you know, they get into the middle of the ground, or another guy suddenly, or you know, or suddenly the referee starts fighting you. Also, I mean, that's reality. You know that. I know that. That's because, you know, we came from that. I mean, we came from that background. That's what we were looking for. We knew initially that we need to deal with the real thing. We didn't get confused about. I just knew that at the time there wasn't NHB when I was starting out, and there weren't fights for even though, you know, all these movies were made, there's underground fighting. Where the hell was it? You know what I mean? Because I knew a lot of people were willing to look for it. It didn't exist. So I went into, you know, professional fighting, and there's things to be learned. There's things to be learned about professional fighting, and it takes a certain type of person. You've definitely got to be, you're like a Ferrari compared to a Ford. Compared to a normal person, you're the Ferrari, the normal person's a Ford. They can't keep up with you on anything. But I also know the limitations of that, and I also know what happens is that people get a big ego from doing this and thinking that it fits, you know, that it's going to fit with real violence. So I'll be able to handle it. No, you're not. And the thing is, there are some people around the world, there's not a big percentage, but they spend time learning war fighting like you're doing sport fighting. And if you meet one of those people, you're dead. I mean, you're simply dead, because you have not considered. You think it's going to be like, oh, well, this guy's going to come out there and show me his skill. No, he's going to go out there and kill you. You know, suddenly there's going to be a knife. You know, he might have started out trying to hit you or whatever, and you thought, oh, I deflected that. And thing is, unarmed, you learn that you can absorb certain things. I mean, that's part of being a professional fighter. You have to absorb stuff. You can't absorb steel. It doesn't happen. You can't absorb an iron bar, and you can't absorb 5 inches of steel being thrown, you know, thrusted in. You can't. There's a totally different type of fighting. You have to. I mean, I'm just giving away some secrets here. You got to be a lot more dynamic. You got to move a lot more, and the energy is like 6 times what. I mean, you did that. Even just screwing around knife sparring is more energy than kickboxing. You know, because you got to move. I mean, if you're trying to win, you know, and that's
well, you know, I always tell the guys, I go, you can't afford to be touched. So if the guy's cut, man, that one little cut and your freaking arm's dangling.
Yeah, because you don't know the night. Yeah, yeah.
You know, I said, so it brings out a lot more movement, and that's one of it. Just as a training tool alone, that's why I like it. It forces you to move a lot more.
It's a complete sprint. You know,
yeah.
It is a complete sprint. It's like, you know, as a professional fighter, you're like a middle distance runner. You know, you're a middle distance runner, and you go and you have a certain rhythm and pace. Everyone does, and everyone's just slightly different. But in what we're talking about there, no, it's a sprint, because if you're trying to pace it, and the other guy is like you're saying, touching you, which is cutting you or stabbing you, you're done. I mean, you're going to get done. You know, you're going to get, because you can't absorb it. You cannot absorb that stuff. You know, and like, yeah, but I want to get into the part like we've talked about before, like bringing in Feldenkrais stuff and bringing in what else we were talking about. I knew we talked about Feldenkrais and. But these other aspects that you know, like self hypnosis, I guess, part of sports psychology stuff that was going on. All of those things help too. That's what I'm saying, you know. And
because I'll tell you right out, my dilemma, you know, is in my situation. If I make all my classes hardcore, like the old days, you start noticing a drop off real fast, because guys go home and they're like, you know, and the next day they get up and they're like, because these aren't professional guys, they're not military, they're not law enforcement, and then you start watching your classes go. So the hard thing for me has always been trying to keep some kind of balance, you know, keep it as realistic as possible, but still have a camaraderie, somewhat fun element to it, and still have exercise in it, and giving them other things, you know. So what I try to do more now is I try to keep a balance between giving these guys tools for self-rejuvenation and relaxation and freeing up their bodies and pulling the kinks out, you know, and doing that in ways with partners that are interesting. And there's where Systema has particularly huge value, because they have a lot of great, you know, partner drills for that type of thing. And then balancing that with doing stuff that's trying to keep it real, but guys not, you know, going home injured. It's a tricky balance to try to reach. It's tough stuff to do. But that's the situation I'm in.
Yeah, I was just thinking of. So write it down if I can find my. Yeah, the thing is, I understand exactly what you're saying. I have to say the same thing when I'm doing seminars, even with people, especially if you're doing a 3-day seminar. You can't do extremely hard stuff on the first day, because then they'll be sore and unable to function the rest of the days. So yeah, you have to wave it. It's it's a wave, which is the same way the Russians train. That's the same way you train as a professional fighter too, which is where the ties are off. They do it longer, harder, you know, every day. You can't. You got to wave everything. But but it doesn't mean you never do it. That's the whole point. I think we're trying to get across. You got to do it at some point. It doesn't mean it's all you do, but it doesn't mean avoid it like most people in most classes do. They never, you know, like I'm saying, I see all these Filipino martial arts classes, silat classes, and they never do it. You know, they're never risking anything. And that's the thing. Like when you're putting the armor on and stuff, you're at least risking the ego, which is a big deal. That's a big deal. That's a huge deal. And people are like, oh, that's not so. It is, because I mean, we get into Reichian right there, you know, ego defense, the defense mechanisms that you body armor, the Reichian body armor, that you carry around a sense of yourself, a sense of your own body, and you have protective, kind of psychic energy levels around what you, like some people want to protect their nose, you know, other people, they'll let their nose get hit, but they'll protect their ears, or it's very weird, you know. And so that ego thing is giant, and that's all part of the ego. There's something you don't want to lose, and think,
that's a big one.
yeah, and thinking. I mean, and the thing is, that's our job as trainers, instructors, is that we search out what it is that you're attached to, and we can find it. You know, especially with certain drills that we do. Like we know what we know. Like there's certain things. Like certain people get weirded out by certain punches. Like maybe they can handle a bunch of. They can handle, you know, 3 types of punches, no problem. But this other one freaks them out, and they overreact or they do the wrong action. So you got to train them how to get past that. And no, I'm not explaining how to do that now, but that's I mean that was straight JKD with Mike Salen. That was combat JKD. That training was covered in all those aspects. And the thing is here though, do you think that all these guys that your group, because you have like you're saying, you got guys who are experienced. Nobody's like a new person. They've all done.
Yeah, most of them have done a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Do you feel that they're at that point? Do you think that they're trying to do this? That they're trying to get? They're looking for this. I mean, they're trying to do what we're talking about. Absorb what is useful. They're trying to get to the bare bones, strip it down, the skeleton, analytical, empirical analysis. Do you think that they're there? Is that?
Yeah, I think maybe 2.
Really?
Because one's a really active fighter. I mean, he's doing kickboxing and he's doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and yeah, he's fighting. The other one's a cop who's on the street. The other guys, I would say to a degree, but and I always tell them, I go, you know, I'm giving this stuff out there. It's your decision what you're going to do with it. You know, I'm not training you in just to you know, do this one art. I'm trying to teach you a process. But no, I think just to a small degree. I think most of these guys they want to do something that's more realistic than things they've done in the past. They like the fact that we do address that. At times they're in extremely spontaneous situations. They have to problem solve under pressure. They like that. They see the applications even in the mentality and principle of that to other challenges that they run into. But I don't think, except for 2 in particular, I don't think any of them are really fully there with that. I don't think they're that interested.
Yeah.
They're not that interested. They don't have a reason to be in their lives the way their lives are. So they're not going to do that much work. You know, they're not going to work that hard.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what would be your guidelines or suggestions or outline, however you want to structure it, for people who want to start using this absorb what is useful as a way of life? What would be your advice? What would be your counsel on this?
Well, the toughest single factor of that is the big one, which is you can't look at anything, period, as being set in stone. There is no such thing. I guess another way to frame that is, we learned this in basic psych when I was in working through toward a degree in psych, is you know, most people think in terms of this is the right way and this is the wrong way applied to everything, and they don't have that shades of gray mentality, you know, where in reality in the universe things are a mishmash. There's really nothing that's truly bad and truly good. It can change in any moment. You know, what's good here may not be good here tomorrow. They have to do something here that would be considered bad. They don't have that kind of mentality because they have dualistic minds because of the kind of religious indoctrination they've been through the conditioning of the culture they grow up in, and they don't. Just learning that alone, how to free yourself to look at things and analyze them and see what's working and what's not, that could get you to higher places in everything and anything you want to do, because you're not fixated. Just like I try to make that point in principle by changing the name of what I do every so many years, you know, and playing with that to try to get that philosophy out there. But on the other hand, where I sabotage myself with that is and I've done this over the years too. It's like, I'll take an art like I've been doing with Systema, and I'll say, I'm going to focus on this like 80 or 90% of the time. What can we get from this that's useful? Boom, you know? And for me, I think what drew me to that is finding all these new modes of freeing up joints that want to lock up from old injuries and getting my hips to move more freely and better again. And I'm dealing with stuff age-related and accumulative injury-related that art offers that no other art I've ever done offers. So it's giving me new information there, but I'm more focused on that aspect from the Systema than any of the rest of it. I mean, that's to me the most useful part, is how to really breathe through fear, breathe through body tension, free the body up to move more. That's the core, and I feel like I've pretty much captured that. So now back to more focus on the actual physical applications of things with guys who don't train more than a few times a week. I'm having to go back through a process of getting rid of a lot of stuff that I've picked up from that art that I don't feel it'll get them in trouble, because I watch it fail. Sometimes I'm pressure testing them and they don't even realize I'm doing it. And then it's like, oh, that's not working. That's not working. Well, why not? Well, it's too elaborate. It's look, when you can just go, pow! It's time to go, pow! And forget trying to wind it up and do all this. It fails. You're seeing it fail.
Yeah. I'm all for
it. So why is it failing? Okay, so you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm all for that. I mean, I'm all for the direct, the uncomplicated way. The taking out all the knots in the rope, as it were. You know, that all this becomes a bunch of knots when you're doing this. People are adding things, and really you should be. And Bruce even said it. You should be subtracting. You should be taking things away.
Yep. And I'm in the subtract. I was in the absorbing process with this for the last 5 years, and now this last half year I started gradually moving more and more to, okay, what do I like from it? And where I'm at in my head with it is it's really body mechanics. It's freeing up joints. It's new ways to train with partners for fitness training, and there's a lot of extra cool stuff in there that's relevant. But a lot of the other stuff I find is way too elaborate for guys that aren't training 4 and 5 days a week. That has to go.
And I think that you were saying a million different ways is kind of, we're touching on Zen quite a bit here.
Yeah, you can say that.
You know, don't be attached. You know, don't become attached. Yeah, you know, don't become attached to.
Well, here's a good application of this philosophy. Look how this works in relationships, male-female relationships. Because I've applied this philosophy my whole life to relationships with women. You know, watch how you see how people will make each other miserable, and they'll suffer because their mindset is, oh my God, I'm actually married. So no matter what, I have to really try to make this work. Well, it's been clear for 2 or 3 years already, it's not working. There are complex personality dynamics in this, differences in goals and directions in being in a couple that aren't working. It's time to let this go and move on. You're wasting time, and you're just causing more damage, more psychological, emotional damage to each other by staying in this, just because you have the mindset that, because you're married, you've got to make it work. Well, you've already done that. You've tried that. It's failed. You need to move on. Look how many miserable bastards are out there because they can't free their minds even from the attachment to how they think you're supposed to be in a relationship versus how it actually goes.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to have to start doing another sideline about relationship matters, but I will take it to another place. And same thing about money. There are people who get that way about money. You know, they get addicted, and I mean, it becomes a obsession. It becomes an obsession, an addiction to money, like the quest for money, or the trying to get it or having it and then trying to keep getting more. When what's it doing? What are you doing with it?
You know what? I'm watching all this shit that's coming to me. I'm a perfect example because I'm pushing 65. I'm a year and a half away from 65 years old, right? Yeah. So now I got all these people sending me all this shit, trying to scare me that, oh my God, you won't be able to live and retire because you didn't buy this life insurance and you didn't buy this bullshit, and you're still not putting enough money away into your IRAs and all this. Like, fuck you. I mean, what do you mean I can't live? I've been living like this forever. My actual cash needs as I get older are becoming less and less, not more and more. So what's this horseshit you're trying to sell me? You know, they really prey upon people approaching retirement age, trying to make you think, oh, you're going down, man. You're going down because you know. And I was like, fuck you, you can't live on Social Security. And they go, well, you are if you're smart and you figure out when the right time to take it is. I'll have $2,600 a month coming in tax free. I've been living on less than that lots of years in my life. That's not a problem. I'll have my house paid off by then. But they don't teach you that. They teach you, oh God, no, you got to have more money. I hear all these assholes saying you need $5,500 to $6,000 a week, a month. I'm like, for what? To come over and take care of your family or something too after I retire? I don't need $6,000 a month coming in when I'm 70 years old. Are you out of your fucking mind? But that's just another example that I thought I'd offer. The way you're getting bombarded with all this shit. They're trying to make you believe that you have to stay. We're back to, you have to stay in patterns. Patterns of belief are the worst enemy of all. And you can use the martial art microcosm of training to develop that philosophy. I always tell guys that a lot of the best stuff you're getting out of here is a new way of thinking and looking at things, and you can apply it to anything. Because most of you guys ain't in here out there fighting. You're not military. You're not working in a prison or a psych hospital, and you're not cops. So what else are you getting out of this that applies? It's a process.
Well, hopefully though, I will bring this up because I think this is important. A lot of people neglect this. Is that you're doing an insurance policy against that time where you may become the victim of violence. Just like I'm sure that all these people didn't think that they're going to be victims of carjackings and kidnappings. And, the same thing, people have fire insurance in their house that they pay, and the majority of people never have a fire. So it's wasted money, right? I mean, that adds up. That's a lot of money, especially for flood or fire insurance. That stuff adds up. But they do it on the off chance that, if it does happen, I'll have something that will help me. The same thing with this. You'll have something that will help you. If they're training twice a week or 3 times a week, or even 1 time a week, they're at least doing something more than nothing. And they're definitely ahead of the people who are doing nothing, who never thought about it. And the thing is, it's too late once it hits. I mean, if someone's strong arm robs you and you can't afford to lose that much money, maybe you had your mortgage payment with you or something. I don't know, your rent payment, or which is a lot of money in some United States places.
It is.
Yeah. And you can't absorb that. I mean, you can't absorb it. So you're like, well, it's a risk that I have to take because I can't absorb losing whatever, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 or whatever. I can't absorb it. And I know people who can. That's no, so they don't. They always, I'm not involved. Yeah, turn it up. Turn it up. Now, when you start losing 80% of what you have, I guarantee you're going to care. All these people say, I'm not attached to it. You will be when it's 80% of what you have. So, I mean, I just had to throw that out there because a lot of people are disingenuous with their actual thought patterns. They say, well, I'm not. Yeah, you will be. You know what I mean? You will be. But the thing is, it's an insurance. It's an insurance. Doing this for normal people, like you said, normal people who not looking for violence, who aren't in violent professions, they are doing it. It's nice to them, and as Cooper said, the famous shooting guy, there are certain people in society who prey on other people. It's always been this way, and it's never going to change. And so you got to be prepared for that, just like you got to be prepared to look both ways when you cross the street. I mean, you might be able to get away with looking left only for a while without getting hit, but you need to look both ways. And the same thing with this is really that analogy may be strange to some people, but you have to look both ways. It means you have to be able to train to be ready for the good and the bad. That's what both ways means here, the good and the bad. So I think that for me, the absorb what's useful it's been used only for martial arts stuff, and it's basically people try to rationalize what they're doing, saying that when they haven't really looked at what they're doing all the time. I mean, they're not able to empirically validate why. Why are you using that move? Why are you using this move? Why are you using that technique? Like you have, you're empirically saying, well, we're using this because it works, and that's always, it has a higher percentage of working. That's always that's the way to judge anything, actually. Does it work? Does it work? What works the most often? Just like drugs from medicine. What works the most often? That's what gets approved. That should be the same thing for your techniques. What you should take what works the most often and use it. But we're also talking about not just for the martial and the combat aspect of it, not the personal violence aspect, but also talking about that in the mental way of how to approach things. Like we could even take it to music. You know, do you need to learn every instrument to be able to play one instrument well? You know, no. And jazz scales to play rock? No. You know, I mean, you don't need that at all. But yeah, I mean, you know, I think whatever. I mean, what do you have to add at this? I mean, you know, I think we're getting there on this.
I think we got our point out there, and I think it has, you know, a lot of value way beyond, you know, just the training part. Nothing really. I'm pretty much, I'd say I'm wrapped up on my end.
Okay. Okay. Well, okay. So something that I need to throw out there though for everybody, as we should be doing, because hey, we're not getting. You see the studios we have? We don't have studios. You see the crews that we have? We don't have any crews. So we like giving everybody information. I like answering certain questions. I don't do them, you know, in order or anything, obviously, and I don't do them in a timely fashion because we don't have a crew and we don't have studios. But I would say, you know, so you got to support us in our endeavors to give you guys years and years of this experience, and the way to do that, of course, is to take seminars, take classes, to do camps, to do workshops, to get our materials. Ken, you said we're going to work on some DVDs. What's up with that? What's going on? What's going on with your idea to shoot some new DVDs?
Yeah, I'm sort of stuck right now on that. I think what I'm going to do instead in the time being is Jay's been saying, come on over, and he's got a good space for workshops, and I'm thinking about doing one in February, and I'm going to try to put that up and see if any of the guys that have been looking at this stuff are willing to show up. Maybe we'll get one or two that'll come into town and see what we're up to. You know, I'm going to stay on that tack for a while. I'm just not finding it a good cost-effective way to do the quality of DVD stuff I want to do right now. So I'm going to hold off on that till maybe springtime and go back. I don't know if you can still hear me. Your image is frozen right now.
Okay, it went to.
Oh, there's something. I heard you again.
Okay, I said, okay, yeah, we're having a little satellite problem here. Tell people how they can get a hold of you or find you again. Call you.
Really, the easiest thing is just go on Facebook. You know, find me at Ken O'Neill Martial System. Or I'll do my Cheese Whiz thing that I've done the last couple times. And
yeah, but who cares?
Yeah, right. You can call me with the sophisticated graphics here. 314-504-1178. You know, our high-tech technical studios over here.
We don't have a crew, so you're gonna, you know, it makes us more real. We're more real this way. We're more real. And for me, for those of you who don't know, because I need to plug some stuff here too. I mean, my websites, the two big ones, fluentfighting.com, and then the other one is combat-judo.com. combat-judo.com. That's where I'm spending the most time because I'm working with John Saylor. We're launching this endeavor together, and we're doing well with it. The people who've trained so far like it. So we have a camp coming up in March, very first weekend in March. So you can go to the website and find out how you can secure a spot. You can save $50 if you do it before the 26th, actually, right now. And also on Facebook, you can find, I have Facebook pages and I have Facebook groups. There's the Combat Judo group. There's the Tiger Clan Weapon Fighter group. And then there's my page of Clugston Combat Systems, the page, which is more global, has more things on it. But as usual, I mean, that's the ways to find us. We're out here. We've been there. Oh, and I should say, if that Ken is in St. Louis, United States, about the middle of the country, and he is open if you want to book him in advance. You got to check his schedule to do workshops and clinics. And I'm in Southeast Asia, but I will be in the United States coming up because I've got, as I said, I got a camp to do in Ohio in the snow. I'm not looking forward to the snow part, and I'm doing some private training as always, and working on some other things. So some big things are planned. But this was our Christmas Eve. Well, actually, Christmas Day for me here in the jungle. Now it's now Christmas. It's the 25th here. So it's just the morning. It's still the morning there in St. Louis, I know, the 24th. But here it's Christmas 25th. So anyway, I just want to say that we'll be back soon. Keep sending messages to me on questions you'd like answered or topics you'd like covered. We've got a lot, and we're going to do another one where we talk to people, have question and answer. But some of our topics haven't been really open to that. I mean, the last couple ones haven't really been open because we felt that that the people didn't have as much experience in the field to be giving you. We didn't want to promote certain ideas of people who hadn't been in the field for 10, 15 years or more. But we felt that there was some sort of validity to having us, Ken and I, talk about it because we've been doing this for a very long time, since the last Ice Age, I think, was when we started. But anyway, so that's all I got to say, and I will. Ken and I will be seeing you again soon, and probably it'll be 2018. We'll probably get to 2018, and so be safe, everyone. And if you want to be even safer, train with us. But we'll be talking to you soon. So take care.